Right, thank you. So thank you everyone for being here. As I said, we'll be talking about the top acquisition strategies to grow your property inventory. Especially, we'll be talking about the US market. We have here three CEOs for you, right? From Key Data, Superhog, and Vintory. So without further ado, let's get into the agenda. The key question is basically how you can add more vacation rental listings, create a great home acquisition campaign, for example. I will give a quick introduction about some data in the market, how things are going now in the US in terms of supply. You see it's a bit tight. We'll be talking also how to start your home acquisition campaign, and it all starts with data. And Key Data Dashboard will take us through there to help us understand how you pick which market to go to, the right property types, for example, and how you get owner data. Then with Superhog, we'll see how to craft a compelling proposition. For example, what should you be the best at? How to tell that to the owners, and how security comes into play in this. And finally, we'll see how to conduct an omnichannel campaign, not just a multi-channel campaign, but an omnichannel campaign. With Vintory, we'll see what this is about and why this is really important, so that you have the best ROI for your home acquisition campaign. And then we'll leave the time for a mini debate about the risks of doing all this, or should you even do all that? And a Q&A. So again, make sure to already can leave some questions on the side in the chat, and we'll be reading the questions. So quick intro for myself. So I'm Thibault from Rental Scale Up. I'm the founder of Rental Scale Up. What we do, Rental Scale Up, as you may know, we are a news site. We have a free weekly industry newsletter. You can go to rentalscaleup.com to sign up. We talk about the big trends in the market, just as we are today. We also have a private network where we help basically people, property managers, get together, work with peers, and make decisions on the business, so take action. And also, we do some consulting for property management companies. Today, I'm more the host, and I'm just framing things. So I'm talking for a few minutes to just paint the landscape. So in terms of supply, this is January 2022 data from AirDNA, which is also a data company. Basically, what they're saying now is that there is more than 1.5 million short-term rentals in the US. It's the highest number ever. And in January 2021, 50,000 new short-term rentals were added, which basically we're back to the growth that we had seen pre-pandemic, which is fantastic because it's the highest number ever, while at the same time, you still have big gaps in some cities. For example, New Orleans. In New Orleans, the number of listings is still down 30% compared with pre-pandemic. So can this tree grow up to the sky? Well, yes and no. As you may have noticed, we have several factors here who can play a positive or negative role in this growth of supply. We all want more supply. For example, inflation is here. And inflation means that real estate prices are even getting more expensive. It's also a tight market, right? If you're trying to acquire vacation rental property, for example, as an owner, you also have to compete with people who want a primary home in some places. Also, you have regulations coming in, and regulations can, for example, be a limit for the growth of supply. The short-term rental bans or necessity to have some kind of license in some places. So it makes it hard even for example, a property manager to find properties that actually have this kind of licenses. And inflation has maybe also have a weird positive role in the sense that a lot of people, maybe they're acquiring now a vacation rental home, they may need to find a property manager like you right now, because they can't have it sit empty when there's costs are going are rising so fast, right, of energy and the rest. So inflation in a sense may have a positive role. That's what we heard as well from Airbnb, is that a lot of people may want to try putting a place out for and find guests because they want to make up for the costs. Again, painting the big picture here, that this search for supply is happening. It's tense, but it's always been like this in a way. Like if you look the last 3 years, it has data from Key Data. Jason, the CEO of Key Data, will be talking in a few minutes from now. But basically, over the last 3 years, more than 2/3 of property managers have been added properties, right? So if you're a property manager in the US, right, there's a chance that there's three of you, two out of three of you have added properties. So if you're in the 1/3, it could be interesting, again, in Q&A to understand why you're not doing this, because a lot of your competitors, colleagues and peers are doing that. And this search for supply is not just property managers, right? Airbnb, for example, has stated in its 2022 strategy that they wanted more supply. Airbnb has three main pillars into a strategy for 2022. One of them is called unlock the next generation of hosts. It's not find the next host, right? It's unlock the next generation of hosts, which does mean that it's kind of hard, right, to find the people. And of course, Airbnb always says that they're about individual hosts, and yeah, they have landing pages to attract teachers, for example. But you should know that they've been reactivating their program called Airbnb for Real Estate, and they are going again after multifamily housing to find again pockets of listings. So this search for more supply is real. And the last bit I want to share here is data from Vintory, whose CEO again will be speaking in a few minutes from now, is basically why property management companies also want to add properties, because obviously it's adding its growth, right? It's adding the revenues. And in a way, if you think of the average lifetime value of a property, adding one property, usually a property would stay about, let's say, 10 years in your portfolio. That's 10 years of bookings you're adding with one property. But we've seen also a lot of acquisition, right? And some of you, for example, may be interested in selling the company right now. And in terms of metrics, of valuation metrics, the number of management contracts is also very important. If you look at the data, for example, Vacasa shared during their filing, when they went public, they shared that when they acquired companies, on average, they paid $21,000 per contract. So again, obviously, the more contracts you have, the higher the value of your company. And even if you don't want to grow, on average, imagine the churn is about 10% per year. Every year, you're losing 10% of your properties. So it does mean you also want to, even if you want to stay where you are, to acquire more properties, just to replace the one you're losing. So I just wanted to paint a picture. But here, clearly, we need strategies and proven tactics, right, to acquire more listings. And here we have Jason Sprenkle. He's the CEO of Key Data. And he will explain exactly, as I said earlier, how to know which market to enter, find the property types that you need for your property management company, and how to get owner data. Then we'll see how to craft a compelling offer, compelling message to convince owners to work with you. And that's Superhog CEO Humphrey who will be talking about this. And we'll see, for example, how security is important in how in the message you're sending to owners. And finally, with Brooke Pfautz from Vintory, who's also a CEO and founder of the company, we'll see how to conduct your home acquisition. You have the data, you have your message, you have to get the message out there. We'll see how you can track all this to make sure you're tracking your return on investment. Without further ado, I'm leaving the place to Jason.
Perfect. Thank you, Thibault. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with everybody. Let me share my screen here. All right. So to talk about growth, obviously, it's something that all three of us are passionate about. So appreciate the opportunity to join you guys and dig in a little bit. Been in the space for 20 years, as a lot of you know. I kind of view growth with a couple of different bullet points here worth talking about. The first one is just, why grow? And when I think about growth for a property manager, I like to think, backwards from wherever the end game is, whether you're passing your company on to your kids who are ultimately going to sell it one day, or whether you're selling it tomorrow. When you think about the value of your company, which obviously we're in it for a lot of different reasons, but income and growth is one of them. The company ultimately is going to be valued on a multiple. It's going to be EBITDA, or sometimes revenue times something, a 6, 7, 8, whatever the case may be. And one of the core things that affects what that multiple is going to be is the predictability and size of your growth. And if you think about it, it makes really good sense. If you've got a company that's making a certain amount of revenue and somebody's coming in to buy your company, hopefully at one point in time they will, they're trying to predict how long it will take them to pay themselves back, right? And if your company's got a very predictable, trackable growth rate, and it's a growth rate that leads them to be able to pay themselves back quicker, it's certainly going to increase the willingness for them to pay you more money. And so understanding the data around how many properties you have each year, what the pace you're growing at is, and then what that impact will be. Like, start with the end in mind, right? Figure out what the different multiples are based on the different growth rates. Do you need to grow 10% a year? Do you need to grow 40% a year? How's the competition growing? How is it going to affect the payback of the acquirer, so that you can kind of understand what a good growth rate is and how it'll ultimately impact you in the long run. The second bullet point, and I'll let Humphrey with Superhog talk more about it, but it's just preparing. You know, the old adage is wait until you have something great to shout before you start shouting. Well, business development is about shouting, right? It's about going and showing off who you are, bringing in new prospects. And so having your house in order, you know, painting and arranging the furniture and prepping the house before you put the sign out front, so to speak. The two things that I like to focus on when I'm thinking about preparing are just your core value prep, to state the obvious. And then I always highlight marketing. I think having a great looking house, having a great looking website, having, you know, your property showed off in a way is as important as anything when it comes to attracting guests. And I still think 20 years into this, people underinvest in their marketing. So I highlight it every time I'm talking about business development. Where we have some data to share and what I want to talk about for the next few minutes is identifying what targets types to go after, which properties belong in your inventory, because every property type doesn't necessarily. And I like to talk about your ESTs, you know, find out what your company is all about. Are you the closest? Are you the cheapest? Are you the most expensive or the nicest? You got to be the best at something, or something with an EST. You don't want to just say we have properties. You want something that highlights who you are. And it may be that we have the biggest or the broadest set of inventory. It doesn't have to be your a specific niche, but find out what your niche is, whether it's broadest or not, and show it off. And make sure that when you're thinking about business development, you're specifically going after target properties that fit that brand that you're trying to build. In the case of the company that we built, we decided to go after luxury units. And the more luxury units we went after, the more it became self-fulfilling, the more properties of that type we attracted, because the more we had. So find your niche. And then really what I want to talk about for the next few slides quickly is, how do you specifically find which targets to go after? Historically, what we did is we drove around and we looked for VRBO signs, and we called on the owners, and we looked at their information on property appraisers' websites, and it's very inefficient. There's a better way to do it. And then last but not least, once you identify the targets, having a specific strategy to go after. And that's really where Vintory comes in, where Brooke's team has built an entire company around taking that list and really executing on it in a meaningful way. As they say, hope is not a good strategy, and Brooke's cured that. So first of all, what's the competition look like? The answer, as Thibault pointed out, is most PMs are growing. 3/4 of PMs are growing. You can look at international, US, urban, leisure. You know, roughly 3/4 of companies are growing, and they're speeding back up. They decelerated a little bit in the middle of COVID, but you can see in 2021, the pace of growth picked back up, and it's pretty universal. So if you're in the third or fourth that aren't growing in your market, your competitors around you are. Also, if you look at the level of growth, you know, we talked about when somebody comes in to acquire you one day, you know, like it or not, they're going to size you up against what a normal growth curve in this market looks like, to see if you have plenty of room for them to grow after the acquisition. And so understanding what your competition's doing in terms of growth in your particular market's important. This is just kind of a sample. You see the US as a whole at about 18%, but you've got some markets, you know, Thibault pointed out supply. Supply in the urban markets is definitely down, but growth for our professional managers is up. And so what inventory is there? Our PMs are going after aggressively, and they're certainly growing in the leisure markets where supply is growing as well. So how do you go about it? You know, we've got this new tool, highlighting it today. It'll be out in about 45 days. As always, I'll take all the feedback you guys can give me as we're finalizing this thing. But you start with where you'd expect to start, right? You start with a list of all the properties out there. We go out and we scrape all the inventory out there on all the major OTAs. So we start with that list and you say, okay, which properties should I go after? Because it's not all of them, right? You can mass mail, but it's not the efficient way to do it. So a couple things are obvious, right? Location, thinking about the efficiency of expanding to another market that's 30 minutes away might not seem far, or an hour away, right? What's that going to do to your logistics and your cost, your time in the truck, how much it costs to go fix a hot tub or fix a refrigerator, or just check on a guest. It might not be worth it. The quality is one that's been very hard for vacation rentals to fine tune. I think Booking years ago tried to put a 1 to 5 star rating on it. The hotels have the benefit of having that. We haven't had that. And so we're putting a lot of data science on our team behind trying to help you guys identify the quality of the house if you're searching for a particular quality. Some companies, Southern Resorts, a good one in our market, have made a really great business out of kind of being really broad in their inventory. 360 Blue, the company we had, we went really narrow. So it was critical for us to go find just the high end units. Other companies have really focused on the lower end units, and so they want to be able to pick those out. So we're using things like the average peak ADR, which is during peak season, what is a verifiable rate that property has achieved? And it kind of separates a really nice house from a less expensive house and up and down the scale. Performance and host. I'll hit host real quick. Some of you don't want to go after your particular competitors. You may have a frenemy type of relationship. Some of you do. Some of you want to go specifically after hosts that are underperforming. So just knowing how to filter by that makes it easier to identify those. Performance is probably the key one, right? The low-hanging fruit on the tree is the property that's doing poor. It's not necessarily the nice house, and maybe that's the only one you want to go after, but even within the quality range that you're going after, you want to find the ones that are currently underperforming. So who's got a really low occupancy, a really poor rate structure, it's got flat rates, they're just not performing the way their peers should be performing. It's a great opportunity for you to step on the accelerator, knock on the door, send a postcard, wherever Vintory sends you, right? And say, hey, we can do better than you're currently doing. I see your numbers out there on the OTA and you're underperforming. Here's the data. Here's why we know we can do better for you. So finding properties that are in your mix, in your area, that are underperforming is some of the easiest stuff when you're thinking about business development. Pricing style is another one, right? If a property is out there on the OTAs and they've only got 3 rates for the entire year, they are definitely not maximizing their RevPAR. And the professionals on this call have a chance to do better than that. So you got to be able to reach out, get a hold of that owner and say, hey, I see what you're doing. We can do better for you. Or your property manager is not even doing good for you. And then some simple things like occupancy, ADR, et cetera. 2 that a lot of people don't think about that we're working hard, that won't be on the first release, will be shortly after that. Those of you who use Demand IQ, right? We can see what people are looking for on your website. So if you're consistently getting people that are hitting your website looking for 7, 8, 9 bedroom with a pool and you don't have it, it's important to know that. That should be first on your list. You've already got the demand for it. You can go to an owner and you can say, here's the demand. Here's the traffic on my website. If I had your property, I could fill it up today. So matching your targets with your existing demand is the easiest way to kind of fill the buckets that already exist. And then last but not least, a lot of you are chasing homes or construction permits that have just gone up for sale or that just sold. It's easier for the data to do that for you. So use a filter, start with a list is our proposition. We can make it easier to find the targets. So just another view, 2 more quick views of it. Once you hit those filters and you find those specific properties, it's important to then go in and say like, okay, I need to be able to find the owner so I can get a hold of him. I need to know how they're performing. So when I get them on the phone or send a letter to them, I can know what message to send to them. Is the message that you're an incredible home and you fit perfectly within our product suite? Or is the message that you're underperforming or that your rates are too flat or whatever the case may be? Or you're a host and we're a professional, right? Understand who your target is so you know what to message them with and you'll get a better response. Are their reviews really poor? Do they have a lot of cleaning problems? That's something that you may have as one of your arrows in your quiver that you can really highlight in the call or in the email or in the message that you send out. A map view, right? Same thing, just a different view of it. So our plan with this product is to just make it easier to know who to go after and to make it easier for you to go after them. You can track notes here, do it the easy way. A lot of you just want the list and you pick up the phone the old-fashioned way, but the pros are out there using companies like Vintory to really dial in and come up with a plan. Again, like I said, hope's not a strategy and notes will help, but having a real fine-tuned plan to go after these targets once you get them is, I think, the better way to grow and kind of keep up with your competition. And then just recognizing that you've got different lists that you're going after. And so being able to do something as simple as managing the Gulf front homes that you want to go after, or the ski in, ski out, or the large homes, or the poorest performers, right? So that you can start to break down different lists with different messages. So we encourage you to get your house in order, know who you're going after, and then use a pro tool to go after them. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Jason. And I was looking at all this data, which is great, but let's say, let's do not, and I really like the way you show the scaling, the growth and the things, but what if I just want to stay, as I am? That's what we hear, you hear property managers come to you and say, I'm just good as I am. What do you have to say?
Yeah, that's a great question. We get a lot of that. I'm at 100 properties. It's an efficient spot for us. I'm really comfortable staying here. I don't want to grow anymore. It's obviously okay to do that if that's what you choose. Just do it with the knowledge that it does impact the value of your company significantly, right? If somebody's going to pay you 3 or 4 times your EBITDA, it's typically because they expect it's going to take them 3 or 4 times to make it back if your revenue is flat, right? You can only squeeze so much more revenue out of those properties that you've got, and then you're going to hit a ceiling. So when companies are coming in to look to buy other companies, they're looking at TAM, right? What's the opportunity? And the opportunity peaks out pretty quickly for the inventory that you have, particularly if you're losing a few. The way to make the opportunity for an acquirer look bigger is to say, hey, you can grow this thing. And the way to show them that is to grow it for a couple of years in a row. So they say, oh, this thing's already headed in the right direction. Keeping it flat and then hoping that somebody else will decide that they can grow it later, it just puts a lot more risks on them. And so they pay a lot less. And so efficiency is good. Same size is okay. Just make sure you're not doing it in a vacuum. You understand the impact.
Thank you, Jason. Once again, you are the founder of Key Data, and now we're going to talk to another CEO before we find you again at the end of the debate and the Q&A. Again, people, if you have questions for Jason, do leave the questions here if you want in chat or ask at the end. Humphrey joining us now. Humphrey Bowles is the co-founder CEO of Safehog, of the Safeguard, Safehog. Superhog, what am I saying? Superhog, sorry about that. And for Superhog, I think what's going to be important with you, great with you, going to be talking about the next phase. Now that you have which properties, you can find the owner data. What are you going to tell them? How do you craft the best proposition possible? And why is security so important, that topic? Humphrey.
Thanks so much, Thibault, and thank you everyone for being here. So yes, I'm Humphrey Bowles, and simply I'm on the mission to solve the trust and protection gap of hosts and guests around the world. Superhog is an award-winning, globally established trust and safety SaaS platform, providing fraud, ID verification, user screening, and insurance. I think it's worth saying 2 things quickly before I get accused of vensplaining. I have started an insurance company focused on peer-to-peer marketplaces. And before that, I spent 5 years working at One Fine Stay in their commercial team, growing their inventory base. So for every one of those 5 years, I basically woke up asking myself this very question we're discussing today, and then the rest of the day trying to execute it. Sometimes well, sometimes not so well.
Well, Humphrey, I think we're seeing the wrong slide. I think we see your notes, maybe not the slides. Just
not
so
my slides. Cool.
It's fine.
How do I get off my presentation side then? Oh, I don't.
I think probably display settings or something like this.
Oh, I haven't got a clue how I work that.
It's fine.
Does that work? Can everyone see that?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. So that is a little bit about me. So the first thing I like to do is I like to introduce you to something that I call the PM paradox. The second is taking a more professional approach. And the third is host experience equals efficiency and convenience squared. So the PM paradox is something which I really enjoy discussing because it sets off what the owner expectations are from a property manager against what the guest expectations of a property manager are. And what it aims to be, or what we certainly aim to be, is to always to be the best. Because if you're building the most compelling proposition when you are talking to new owners, you know, they are going to be drilling down into the questions around how are you going to manage my property, how are you going to run the ship. Now, the first thing that every owner asks is, how much money can I make? So the answer to that is not simply just occupancy. It is around the operations. It's around the tools you use. It's the technologies that you bring into play. And I think it's very telling, looking at different property management companies and looking at the different technologies that they incorporate, whether it's cleaning from the likes of Properly, whether it is remote kind of guest management from people like Aperto, whether it's when we go into trust and safety, you know, it's installing great tools such as Noise Aware, which all bring out really what the kind of the trust that the owners have in the property manager to then hand over their property and say, yes, I think you're going to be able to go out there and win me this business. So when you're kind of mapping the PM paradox, you've got on the one hand the ability to maximize the opportunities. So that is really the income for the owners and their properties. And then from the guests, it's also around being able to take advantage of upselling to those guests when they're present. And then, you know, whether or not you share that revenue with the owners is up to you. But one of the things which I found is by being open to that, it is a way of exceeding owners' expectations of being able to deliver them a better service. And then on the other hand, you are looking to minimize pain, both for the owners and for the guests. And, you know, this can be difficult and complicated, and it's not straightforward. But there are a number of things which sit within the PM paradox, which pull you from one side to the other. So like Jason was saying, you know, really focusing on your niche, really focusing on what you're good at, and looking at what the wider market is providing is going to really help differentiate what you're doing and ultimately help you be the best. Now, it's, you know, it's quite intimidating in some ways, looking at how many things there are to become proficient at from the get-go. But it's also amazing that the number of tools that are out there. Now, when I move on to not depending on luck, you know, all of those things you don't have to do anything with. You can just let it roll and let it be fine. And I'm sure 9 times out of 10, you know, it will work totally fine. But it's then when it catches up with you that you can begin to look a little bit foolish. And I found, speaking to many owners, that being able to answer their questions clearly at the start and then be able to follow through on them was one of the most important things that I did. So the clearly, you know, where I'm coming from is looking at damage. So forgive me for straying into that territory now. I know that the second question hosts ask after how much money can I make is what happens if something goes wrong? And you only have to look at stats like this to see where that question is coming from. 88.3% believe that their property is at risk when having guests to stay. And you can actually take that and then transpose it going forward as well, because if those guests turn up and damage the property, then it's also going to affect future income on that property. And it only takes one bad booking to then have a serious knock-on consequence. So from a point of view of, where Superhog is able to step in and help, we're able to help answer 3 questions simultaneously that are challenged with every single online transaction. First, who are you dealing with? Can you trust the guest? And what happens if something goes wrong? And that also works out when you're speaking to your owners. You are going to have to prove to your owners that, they know who they're dealing with and that they can trust you, and you know what to do if something goes wrong. It also affects the relationship you're going to have with your guests, going back to the PM paradox. It affects, you need to be able to show them that your listings are not fraudulent. It's a big issue at the moment, the number of fake listings that exist up on OTAs, and being able to convince guests to come and spend their hard-earned cash with you is something which is going to become harder and harder. So in order to be the best, you need to be able to answer questions. And this is just one example of how you can use technology to do that. So why should you make some of these investments? Why should you look at plugging into what you provide? Well, I think it comes down to what the host experiences, what the owner experiences, what they are looking for. Now, efficiency and convenience are 2 highly sought after things for owners. When you look at metrics about why owners choose property managers, then what their real focus on is, are they going to give me a return? Are they going to look after my property? Are they going to maximize the potential that I think is there? Are they going to do a better job than I can? And those things, efficiency, convenience, a knowledgeable service, a friendly service, are totally up in the top right-hand corner. Those are the things, the simple things to get right. And then interestingly, using up-to-date technology is a brilliant way to build trust in order to win contracts. And it's putting all these things together which then enable you to go into those conversations and really, really stand out. So thank you very much. I hope that I've left time to answer questions. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I got one on my side, Humphrey, for you, in the sense that, and you kind of alluded to this, right? Like owners are afraid of property damage, right? But imagine I'm reaching out to owners to convince them to work with me. If I start talking about damage, am I not going to scare them off, scare them away?
So again, I think that's a great question. I mean, I came to the conclusion that the kind of ideal verification process would access the guest's likelihood of causing damage and their likelihood ability to be able to pay for any damage. And I think, that what Superhog is able to do is allow hosts to answer those 2 questions before the booking goes ahead, and at a very low pain point for the guests. And by a low pain point, I actually think, it's a beneficial point for the guests. So rather than the guests having to put down a actual $200 or $500 deposit, Superhog can provide that on their behalf. So you don't even have to ring fence their card. And that actually enhances the guest experience. So I think you're able to save on the pain of having to handle a deposit. You're able to build an opportunity to give the guest a better experience. And from an owner's point of view, you're actually able to help them only have the best guests come and stay.
Thank you, Humphrey. Great idea also to not only address the owner, but also the guest experience. Now that we have we know where to target, we know property types we want know what to want to tell property managers. Now it's time to run the campaign itself, and we have another CEO with us, Brooke Pfautz of Vintory, who's going to take us through how to build and launch an omnichannel marketing campaign. Brooke, take it away.
Thank you. First off, do you see my screen all right, Thibault?
Yeah, perfect.
Great. Well, thanks everybody, and excited to be here. It's just a quick little background about me. I've been in the vacation rental industry for about 14 years. Really spent the majority of my time in inventory acquisition and growing companies. You kind of stumbled into this business like most people do way back in 2007, and founded a company called Vantage Resort Realty and grew that company pretty quickly. We grew it to about 500 properties under management in about 5 years. And then I exited that business. I sold that business in 2013. And then I held some various other growth roles with other companies. So I've really spent the majority of my time really focused in inventory acquisition. And this is something that I really enjoy and something I've been blessed to be okay at. So I really enjoyed talking about this topic. So what we're going to talk about today is how to build and launch an omni-channel marketing campaign. So Jason talked about the data side of things, how you kind of target your targets and identify them. Humphrey talked about how to kind of differentiate and how to kind of make your company stand out and position it differently than anybody else, which is one of the core tenets that we kind of talk about. We coach our partners. And then the last, we're going to talk about again how to kind of execute that omni-channel approach. So this is what we're going to be going over today. So we're going to talk about this omni-channel approach. And Vintory is we have built a CRM and software platform, but at the same time we're also a full sales and marketing agency, and we execute this omni-channel marketing strategy you see here on behalf of our partners. In fact, we've done it for close to 300 different companies. So we've got tons of data on what works and what doesn't. We get to see it in aggregate, and we kind of, we're continually learning, continually getting better and better and better. And we're kind of deploying that back to our partner base. So first off, why omnichannel? It's really because when you combine all these strategies, it has a compounding effect, right? It's the definition of synergy. It's 1 + 1 = 3. And the old days of, just sending one postcard per year, they are long gone, and those are for yesterday's managers. Today's top vacation rental managers are executing this kind of proactive omni-channel, marketing approach that you see here. And by doing so, it has that boost effect on all the other campaigns. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down each one of these, and we're going to do kind of like hacks, right? So we're going to break down each one of these into their own hacks and go through them. So let's get started on direct mail first. So here's the thing, we're in this digital world, but guess what? Direct mail is not dead. The vacation rental industry is one of the few industries where direct mail still works. So Brooke, what are the hacks? The first with direct mail is consistency. And I'm going to say it again. The key is consistency. I'd much rather send 1,000 postcards 6 times to the same target than 6,000 postcards all at one time. And why? There's this compounding effect, right? And again, we've run marketing campaigns on tons and tons of companies, and we see all the time the companies that are running campaigns consistently, it works time and time after another. But the partners that we have that, they send one postcard and then they stop, and then 6 months later, they may send another one, you know what I mean? And it's just this, not the sporadic kind of, non-consistent method, it doesn't work. And then they end up canceling. And so the key here is consistency, consistency, consistency. The ROI is there, the math pencils out. The other thing to do here with direct mail is you got to include some kind of compelling offer, right? A compelling offer is something that your lead just can't resist, right? What makes the best? So what are some of the things that make some of the best compelling offers? They it's offering a great value, right? Deliver a discount or a premium. They have urgency, right? They require immediate response. There's a strong call to action. You want some sort of like bulletproof guarantee, and then risk reversals. All right. So also I'd recommend, try something different, right? We've had a lot of success. You're going to be consistent. You want to continue to hit them, and don't just do postcards, vary it up a little bit. So we've had a lot of success with these handwritten notes, and you would never know they weren't written by a human. We actually have 12 robots that do nothing but write these notes around the clock. Guess what? They don't call in sick. They don't call in hungover. They deliver every single day. And here's the thing, even if you're not a Vintory partner, there's other companies out there like this that do it. There's one called handwritten.com, handwritten with a Y. You can deploy these kind of handwritten notes, and it definitely gets your attention. The letter will definitely get picked up. All right, the next strategy we're going to talk about is really about email, right? It's how you convert those cold leads into warm leads and new leads into hot leads. So the hack here with cold email outreach is twofold. First, and most people are not really good at this, but if you don't excel at writing direct response copy, and there's definitely an art to it, right? Less is more usually, right? Hire a great copywriter, and you can find them at a couple different places. So I'm a big fan of Upwork and Fiverr. Upwork and Fiverr are freelancing websites. You can find anything you want there, but if you look for direct response copywriting, you can find people out there. But you want to get somebody that's a pro at this, and have them write him or her a couple campaign templates for you that are, again, they're designed to convert, and that works really, really well. The other thing we do is you really want to automate those cold email outreach services. Don't use your MailChimp. Use something like Mailshake or Lemlist. These sources, these software products are designed from the ground up for cold email outreach, and they're going to ensure your emails are getting delivered to the inbox and they're not marked as spam. When you're, purchasing data lists, the first thing you want to do, or if you partner with somebody like Jason over at Key Data Dashboards, make sure you're getting absentee owner lists. You want to make sure you're getting emails and phones. And there's a couple of different spots throughout this presentation. I'll talk about why it's important, but this is one of them. And this was actually a huge surprise for me, but cold email outreach works. People actually respond to these. We have a partner in Kauai. First email campaign we sent out, he landed 2 deals, and the average gross booking revenue per property was about $100,000. So he generated $200,000 in annual gross booking revenue from one email campaign. And we see time and time again, it definitely works. All right, the next thing we're going to talk about, part of that omni-channel marketing strategy is pay per click. So what's the hack here? First up, you want to cast as wide a net as possible, but you have to know the right key terms. And here's the thing, paid search traffic can be great because it really has high intent and the person is looking to take action, right? But the downside in this scenario is that the overall search volume is very low. So you have to cast as wide a net as possible. So at Vintory, we have a full digital marketing team, and we've researched and tested the best 50 to 70 unique keyword concepts to bid on for paid search. But here's the thing, you don't have to just hire us. You can use tools. I'll give you literally the playbook. We use Ahrefs and SEMrush. These are the tools that we use to kind of help us build out what those keywords are. All right, so the hack is, again, just to summarize, you want to leverage tools like these to find those long tail keywords and make sure you're casting as wide a net as possible. I am going to go off script a little bit here. The key too, though, is you want to drive all this traffic to a really well-designed landing page. You can't just send them to your website and they're lost and they're looking for where to go. Design a really good landing page. If you don't have a really good web designer, there's a couple different ones out there. There's Unbounce is a great landing page builder that you can use that has landing pages that are designed to convert and capture those leads that come in. All right, so another key digital advertising hack is to use what's called list-based retargeting. Most people haven't heard of that way, but it's actually also known as custom audiences within Facebook and Instagram. So list-based retargeting has been a game changer. So previously, the only way you could get in front of your prospect targets was through direct mail. But now with list-based retargeting through Facebook, you can even do it through Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter, you can actually serve up your display ads directly on your targets. So not triangulating and, you think this is like a lookalike audience. I'm talking about serving it up directly to your targets. All right, so how do you get started with this, Brooke? The first thing you want to do is establish your target list of properties you want to go after. You then, this is why it's so important, you get that email and phone appends for these owners. If you don't have it within your list, you can find other companies out there that actually allow you to get email and phone appends. If you have that information, you can then upload that list into Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and then you serve up those display ads directly at your targets. Again, this is a game changer. And what's great about this is if you time this with your other marketing efforts like direct mail, you're going to get that boost effect with your other marketing. So typically what we do for all of our partners is we're going to run list-based retargeting about a week prior to targeting and doing the direct mail. So subconsciously, they're recognizing you. They've seen your ads on Facebook, and then instantly they're getting a direct mail piece in their mailbox. Now, there's tons of moving parts to administer something like this, but there's a self-serve software tool out there and marketing advertising platform called AdRoll, or shameless plug. Obviously, you can hire a company like Vintory to kind of deploy it for you. All right, another way you can target your prospective owners digitally is through IP targeting. So it's great. I mean, like I said, when I had Vantage, I mean, the early days, I mean, all we were doing was really direct mail and just partnering with realtors. It's so nice now that there's so much of these other digital sources out there. So IP targeting, what is IP targeting? IP targeting allows you to serve up display ads directly on your prospective owners' computers as they surf the web. So just like we talked about before, like in advance of doing any kind of direct mail, you want to make sure they're seeing your contact information and your ads in advance. Same thing here. So millions of different sites out there like Weather Channel, ESPN, CNN, like you name them, they're out there, even local news sites. All right, so how do you do it? Step one, you want to upload that list of your targets to the IP targeting software. It then matches your target with the IP addresses. It then serves up those display ads on the target's computers as they surf the web. So, I mean, literally, if like the CIA ever got into marketing, I think this is probably how they would do it. So between this and list-based retargeting, for the first time ever, we're able to push out digital marketing to targets without having them coming to your website first and cookie them, right? Like that used to be the only way you could do any kind of digital marketing to these people was, making them come to your website and then cookie them and then kind of retarget them. But this is a big deal. I mean, with the exception of these large venture-backed companies, almost nobody is doing this, but now it's totally doable for the little guys too. All right, so here it is. I'm going to give you the playbook. You can, a couple different companies that allow you to kind of deploy this are Simplify and AdCellerant, or again, Vintory, we deploy this for all of our partners too. All right, next we're going to talk about retargeting. So what if I told you that I would say close to 80% of the property managers out there have a leak in their sales funnel, right? They've got a leaky bucket. Well, guess what? It's true. We've secret shopped over 100 vacation rental manager landing pages. And when we leave that page, the vast majority, by a long shot, do not have retargeting ads that bring us back. And this, honestly, this worries me because we know even the best performing landing pages out there, 80 to 95% of traffic doesn't fill out the form, right? So you want to do whatever you can to bring them back, nurture them, capture them as a lead. All right. So my hack is two parts. First, be sure to leverage retargeting on your property management page. Again, most people are not doing that. Second, use Google Tag Manager. So Google Tag Manager is going to centralize your retargeting tags and pixels. It's an easy sign-up process. It manages all your retargeting tags in one simple app. It'll save time. You're going to see all your results in one place. All right. So if you really want to be a baller, as talking about retargeting, do what's called direct mail retargeting. You now have the power to send physical print postcards to prospects who visit your website before they even give you out their contact information, before they even fill out a form. This is amazing. So here's what it works. It works where you match the person's IP address, and when they come to your landing page, assuming they don't fill out that form, you can automatically send them a specific direct mail piece to help them convert. So again, it's all about nurturing them and bringing them back into the funnel. We've been testing this with a couple of Vintory partners, and the initial response has been fantastic. And I totally plagiarized this idea from Wayfair. I was shopping for patio furniture and I didn't buy. 3 days later, I had a postcard in my mailbox with the exact patio furniture I was looking at with a little coupon on it. Well, guess what I did? I ended up purchasing that patio furniture. So again, this works. We've been testing it. It works really, really well. Highly recommend testing it out and trying it out. Again, it's all about trying to bring back that traffic that's already coming to your landing page. All right, and that is how you deploy an omni-channel marketing campaign that will help you grow your inventory.
Thank you, Brooke. Quick question here from Rachel. I'm going to read the question about retargeting. with your retargeting, what would you say is the minimum database number that you need for it to be effective? The minimum is 100, but the targeting is so ineffective because it's too small to get real insights. What do you think?
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, here's one thing. If you go direct, and here's another hack. If you go direct to Facebook and LinkedIn and some of these companies, if you have a small database for list-based retargeting, it's not going to work. They're going to say you don't meet the minimum standards. Now, Facebook is definitely loosening that up just because they're getting crushed with the Apple iPhone kind of release, security release. But if you use ad roll, you can do it with very, very minimal amounts, because what they're doing is they're actually bundling it almost like a wholesaler, bundling a bunch of different companies together and kind of doing it for you. So you can kind of deploy it there. So you can do it with a very minimal size with ad roll.
I have another question for you.
Am I allowed to speak?
Go ahead.
Oh.
Go ahead.
With ad roll, do you mean like GDN?
Ad roll is it's a company that manages these campaigns, these retargeting, list-based retargeting campaigns, for you.
Okay, I'm in New Zealand, so maybe not here.
All right, maybe Brooke, if you can stop sharing your screen, and I will sort of turn this into a little debate, because there's probably risks or things for example, Brooke, there's you shared all the things you could be doing to create this omnichannel marketing campaign. Looks like a lot of work. So how realistic is that for a small property manager who's never done this before to tackle this?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I mean, of course, you can build it out yourself, right? And build out that team. Obviously, if you look at Picasa, they got 107, and this is years ago. They have 177 people in their business development department. So you can do it yourself, but it obviously gets expensive to hiring, copywriters and graphic designers and digital marketing pros and things like that. That's one method. You can hire more of a utility player, hire one generalist to kind of help you with it. I'm a big fan of outsourcing stuff. So I think I mentioned earlier, there's freelance sites out there like Upwork and Fiverr. We've been, it's funny. If you look at a lot of our team, most of them started as a freelancer that I found on Upwork, and then they ended up with just cranked up their hours. Next thing you know, they're working full time for us. So it allowed you to kind of grow with them. There's another company out there called Extend Team, Ari over at Extend Team. They work for just the hospitality industry and just short-term vacation rentals. And we have about 10 people on the Extend Team on our team. But or you can hire there's sales and marketing agencies out there that you can hire to kind of do this. So if you don't want to spend all those salaries and things like that, and again, shameless plug, obviously you can throw it over to Vintory and we can do it all for you if you want.
Jason, I see you smiling, and thank you for your answer first, Brooke. Jason, when you think about all this, what we've seen again, do you see any kind of frequent mistakes or risk people are taking they should not be taken?
Yeah, I mean, Brooke and I have been geeking out on this stuff for a long time, since way back when I had a vacation rental company. And one of the things I wanted to point out that I think ties back to Rachel's, and again, easier to get away with some things from a privacy standpoint in the US than outside the US, but most people here are from the US. So the tool that I see most underutilized are two that Brooke mentioned. One is the IP targeting, and the other is the postcard remarketing. And here's why they're so beautiful. Is let's say you just identify 20 targets to go after, right? Forget the massive campaign for a second. You got 20 houses that fit your niche. They're the high-end properties you want to go after. They're the ones in the condo where you're performing the best and you want to go get them. Once you identify those owners, there's two plans of attack if you look at Brooke's list and just boil them down in their essence. One is you go knock on the door, right? And you do that through a lot of different ways: email campaigns, phone calls, whatever, postcards right to their email box. That's great. But the other one is these other two that are much more subtle, where you effectively knock on their door in a way where they don't know you're knocking on the door. You put a post on their webpage where they haven't even talked to you, and they just see you. They're 3/4 the way across the country, even though they have a property right down the street from you that you want. They think you're marketing to the whole state, 18, 19 states away, or they think you're everywhere, you're reaching everyone. Where truth be told, you've just done marketing to this handful of people on your target list. it's not so direct and so obvious. Same thing when a postcard lands in their mailbox, right? Like you haven't reached out, you're not shouting at them by name. So it's a really subtle way to catch an owner's eye, because in the end, they're trying to judge you as a property manager on your ability to attract guests. And if you look like you have a massive wingspan and you're marketing everywhere before you knock on their door, then they're going to say, well, it's kind of strange. I've seen their ads everywhere. And then you knock on their door. And guys like Brooke have really mastered that. We talked about it, like I said, back in our day, but those are some technologies that people just aren't using. You know, you're seeing a ton of email campaigns. So think about some of these other ones on his list. They're really, really powerful, in part because they're not very often used.
Thank you, Jason. Humphrey, anything you may want to add again on the, let's say, risks or hidden costs, or whether people should do this, should not, or mistakes you've seen being made in terms of homeowner acquisition, could be in the messaging or the way security is being used, for example?
I think it's tough. You know, if there was a really simple answer to this, then you know, there would be some pretty big property management companies out there. I think you know, I can certainly vouch for Vintory. You know, I know that some of our customers use them, and you know, they are totally outsourcing their business development to them, and you know, those guys are pros. So I would definitely give that a go and give it a trial. I think not to say something nice to Jason, you know, I think that the data is just so crucial in today's world, and being able to identify those properties is so important. And you know, all that you know you then need to do is have that compelling proposition that what you are doing is better than the next property management company. And I think that is a really difficult answer difficult question to answer. I think a lot of people, you know, can bullshit, but actually, you know, how do you demonstrate it? And I think that's what Superhog does. It actually helps you demonstrate that you are better because you're using technology to do something which is impossible to do at a personal level.
Thank you, Humphrey. And speaking of better solutions and things, what's great that the three of you actually have an offer that you give to you know, people attending this conference today. And thank you again on their behalf. And I'm going to read exactly the offer so I don't get it wrong. So the three of you have a package offer in a way, but you can, you know, people are free, of course, to pick and explore anything they want from any of you. So the three of you are offering a free trial, because it's the best way to experience a product, a 60-day free trial from each of you. And to redeem this free trial, this is what to do. If you go to the Key Data website or to Superhog website, you just use the code rental scale up is one word, and you get this free 60-day trial, right? Key Data website or Superhog. Jason, Key Data, I got the website exactly to use, if I don't get the website wrong.
Yeah, just keydatadashboard.com.
Exactly. And Superhog is superhog.com, right? That's easy. All right. And for Vintory is also offering this, on top of this, a free homeowner marketing list up to 500 records and a free homeowner landing page. Brooke talked about landing page. And to find this offer, just go to vintory.com/rentalscaleup. You will get all these codes, the right links, and the things in this the email. I'm going to send you an email with a replay, there's codes, the very links you need to redeem this. Again, I would like to thank everybody for attending this conference. And of course, to speakers, Brooke from Vintory, Humphrey from Superhog, and Jason from Key Data Dashboard. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time and for your insights.